The Martian dust fell away in sheets as Brian worked the sonic cleaner across the hull plating. Beneath decades of accumulated regolith, the metal gleamed like it had been forged yesterday. No oxidation, no micrometeorite pitting, nothing. He stepped back, frowning at the impossibility before him. "Nyla, you need to see this." His partner emerged from behind the starboard nacelle, her exosuit caked in rust-red dust. Through her helmet's faceplate, Brian could see her eyes widen as she took in the exposed section of hull. That's not possible," she breathed. "We dated the crash site to at least 80 years ago. The consortium didn't even have chromium-titanium alloys back then." Brian ran his gloved hand across the surface. The metal felt warm, even through the insulation. "It gets stranger. Look at the weld seams." Nyla crouched down, activating her helmet's magnification overlay. The seams were perfectly flush. The molecular bonding so precise, it seemed like the entire hull had been grown, rather than assembled. Technology like this shouldn't exist even now, let alone 8 decades ago. "We need to get inside," she said. They discovered the wreck 3 days ago while surveying Vallis Marineris for the Colonial Mining Authority. The ship had been buried under a collapsed canyon wall, invisible to orbital scans until their ground-penetrating radar caught the distinctive density signature of a fusion core. By all rights, it should have been a standard salvage job: strip the reactor, catalog the debris, file the report. But nothing about this vessel was standard. The airlock took 20 minutes to excavate. When Brian finally cleared the external panel, he found himself staring at a control interface that made his skin prickle with unease. The symbols weren't consortium standard. They weren't Chinese Collective or Euro Federation either. They weren't anything he'd ever seen in 30 years of salvage work. "Are those hieroglyphs?" Nyla leaned in closer. "No, look at the complexity. There are at least 40 distinct characters here, and they're arranged in mathematical matrices." Brian pulled out his scanner, running it across the panel. "The substrate is emitting a weak electromagnetic field. I think it's still powered. After 80 years, buried under half a mountain, with no solar exposure and no apparent fuel cells," Brian met her gaze. "Nyla, what the hell did we find?" She reached out and pressed the largest symbol, a circle bisected by 3 parallel lines. The airlock hissed open with a sound like escaping breath. The interior corridor was pristine. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they entered, bathing everything in a soft amber glow. The walls were smooth, organic-looking, with conduits that seemed to grow through the structure rather than being installed into it. The air pressure gauge on Brian's suit showed atmosphere thin, but breathable. "I'm reading oxygen at 18%, nitrogen at 79%, trace carbon dioxide," Nyla reported, her voice tight with tension. "It's Earth standard, recent Earth standard." They moved deeper into the ship, their magnetic boots clicking softly against the deck. The vessel was small, perhaps 60 meters from bow to stern, but every centimeter was utilized with an efficiency that spoke of engineering centuries beyond their own. The bridge, when they found it, was dominated by a single chair surrounded by holographic interfaces that sprang to life at their approach. Brian approached the navigation console, his hands trembling. The star charts were immediately recognizable. The solar system, Mars highlighted with current positional data, but the trajectory lines emanating from Mars traced back to Earth and forward to Jupiter. Nyla moved beside him. Why would anyone be heading to Jupiter 80 years ago? We didn't even have permanent settlements there until 20 years back. Look at the timestamp. Brian pointed to a string of numbers in the corner. His translator software struggled with the format before finally rendering it in standard notation. They both stared in silence. The date was 3 weeks from now. "That's not possible," Nyla whispered. "That's a temporal displacement." Brian's mind raced through the implications. This ship isn't from 80 years ago. It's from 3 weeks in the future. The ship's log was stored in a crystalline matrix that took their combined processing power to decrypt. What they found made Brian's blood run cold. The vessel was called the Pathfinder, a human-designed prototype utilizing technology that wouldn't be developed for another century. It had been on a routine survey mission to Jupiter's moon Europa when something had gone catastrophically wrong. Not a mechanical failure, the ship was too well designed for that. Something else. The final log entry was from Commander Sarah Chen, and her words were etched with quiet desperation. We've analyzed the temporal rift that brought us back. The mathematics are clear. Our arrival created a causality loop. If we don't destroy the ship, the technology will be reverse-engineered too early. Humanity will develop it before we're ready, before we understand the dangers. The Europan entities. They exist outside normal space-time. Opening that moon before we have the philosophical framework to understand them will doom our species. We're scuttling the Pathfinder in Vallis Marineris. With luck, it won't be found for centuries. But if someone does find it, if you're reading this, please, don't report this. Don't salvage it. Don't let humanity take this shortcut. We have to learn to walk before we can run through time. Brian and Nyla stood in the amber-lit bridge, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. Outside, the Martian wind howled across the canyon. Inside, technology that could revolutionize human civilization hummed with patient power. The consortium would pay billions for this, Nyla said quietly. I know. We'd never have to work again. I know. Brian looked at her, and in her eyes he saw the same terrible understanding. They were salvagers, not saviors. But sometimes, those roles overlapped. He reached for the self-destruct panel Commander Chen had left accessible, his finger hovering over the activation sequence. For humanity, he said. Nyla placed her hand over his. For humanity. Together, they pressed down. End.